Justin, hi. Welcome to the Earn It All podcast.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Appreciate being here, Justin.
Where do you live these days?
I live in Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder, okay. But you're not from Boulder. I can hear it in your accent.
I'm from London, England.
Okay, cool. You're born over there?
Yep, West End boy.
Yeah, okay, sweet. Sweet. I think this is the first Brit we've had on then, so welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're very excited to talk with you about a couple of things. One, like business. I'm always fascinated talking with people who have had successful business exits. It's one thing to build a cash flow business or a business that has a successful brand or something, but not every business can actually be exited,
right?
And then redone in different ways. So I'd love to pick your brain on that kind of stuff. But maybe we should just dive right into what we were just talking about, a little of the science of, I think, one of the most underrated things, which is sleep when it pertains to people's health. My issue, I was just telling you beforehand, is falling asleep. But even, like I said before about my phone, even if my phone is down, I've always found like when I do go to bed and the phone's away, I have a really hard time just shutting my brain off. And It's not necessarily because I'm anxious or worried or anything. It's just, I'm just constantly replaying conversations or just thinking or strategizing or, I don't know, thinking about my schedule for the next day, something. The brain just keeps going.
Right.
And I look at my wife and she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go to sleep now. And if I don't say goodnight within 2 minutes, she's out and there's no waking her up. And my daughter's like that too, but I don't have that problem. So I don't know what the deal is. I have a hard time getting to sleep.
Yep.
She has a hard time staying asleep.
Right.
So what do you think is going on with people in general and maybe my issue with
She
sleep?
has the worst issue of the two.
Yeah.
Okay. I can give you the whole spiel, but let's break it down to the simple stuff first. Okay. You need your sleep. In order to fix your problem, you just need to adopt better sleep hygiene practices. It's really that simple.
Okay.
You need to wind down. You need to have a regimen, a ritual for going to bed that involves turning your brain off slowly through that process.
Sure.
If you are on your phone up until the time in which you go to bed, you are receiving not only blue light, right, but you are getting content and information that is making your brain think. And you think you're replaying conversations, you might very well be replaying conversations, but it's all that content, that information that is being absorbed by you up into the moment that you say, I'm going to bed now. Boom. Very few people can go from this to this to this.
Right.
Doesn't happen.
Right.
And so they talk about good hygiene in sleep is going to bed at the same time every night.
Mm-hmm. It's one of his favorite things.
Trying to wake up at the same time in the following morning, aiming for 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. We're all aging. Our bladders are not what they used to.
Right.
Let's not have a meal and drink a gallon of water an hour before bed, because if you do fall asleep, you're going to wake up to use the bathroom. Mm-hmm. That is not a good night's sleep. A good night's sleep is uninterrupted sleep. If you wake up once, that is not a good night's sleep. Mm. And so it is very important to set yourself up for success. So the older we get, we always joke, my wife and I, we make dinner reservations at 5:45 now. Used to be 10 o'clock at night, right? Now we go to bed at 8:45, sure. Right? We can't do that. Right. And so you want to consume, you're supposed to consume what? Your body weight in ounces in water every day. You want to do that in the morning, in the early afternoon. Don't want to be, I got to catch up and do it in the evening.
Yeah. You
don't want to be working out at night. You raise your cortisol substantially when you work out. And so you want to try and get all your goals in earlier on in the day. Work out in the morning. Consume your water and your calories between breakfast, lunch, maybe snack between lunch and dinner. You want to have a light dinner at least 3 to 4 hours before going to bed. You want to try to empty your bowels before you go to bed so that you are setting yourself up for success. Meditate, have a hot bath, have a steam shower, do something. Don't watch TV. Don't watch horror movies. Don't start doing crazy stuff that's going to raise your cortisol levels, because you want your cortisol to be high in the morning, lower in the afternoon, and as little as possible by the time you go to bed, so that when you do go to bed, you fall asleep quickly and you stay asleep, because you make your hormones in your deep sleep for the following day, not for the following week, for the following day.
Yeah.
As human beings, we forget that we need to regenerate and recharge, and we do that over a 7 to 8 hour period in our sleep. Yeah. And if you only get 60 to 90 minutes of deep sleep a night in an uninterrupted 7 to 8 window of sleep. If you wake up in the night, you forfeit deep sleep. You make your hormones in your deep sleep. So you have a very small window and opportunity to make what you need to function at your very best the next day. So if you wake up in the night, you forfeit deep sleep, you forfeit some level of hormone production. Therefore, the following day, you're at a deficit. Too many nights of consistent disrupted sleep, and you're on a downward spiral. Yeah. And you cannot catch up on sleep. Everyone says, I'm going to catch up this week. No such thing. No. It's a 24-hour cycle.
Right. Mm-hmm. I think you
Am I speaking your language?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Please, somebody else tell him, so I don't have to always tell him.
It's really that simple. Yeah. And so what has got in the way over the past 30 years is technology, cell phones and technology, and the amount of information that is available to us, unlike ever before in the history of the world.
Sure.
We have never had such availability of entertainment, news, any type of information, whether it's emails, text, communication with our friends, family, loved ones, business associates. It's all flooding to us instantaneously, unlike ever before. That is what's causing everyone's cortisol to be elevated. And that is the root cause of not falling asleep, which is the reason why we're not making the hormones we need, which is leading to all this dis-ease or disease in our world. It all comes back to sleep.
What do you think about my wife who has a different problem? She does fall asleep like a light switch, but then wakes up at 2 or 3 a.m. every night.
Her cortisol is too high.
Yeah.
It's too high. It's waking her up.
Mm-hmm.
Cortisol is waking her up. So what is going on in her world that is causing elevated levels of cortisol? Now, if I may ask.
Driving on I-10.
Yeah. What age is your wife? Give me a range.
45.
Okay. So she's perimenopause.
Okay. Yeah, she's not going to like to hear that. But yeah, no, I hear you.
So let's just take the elephant and just like squish it, right?
Yeah,
there is absolutely nothing wrong with menopause. It's like going through puberty. It is not women are not broken. And I'm sick and tired of hearing on the media how menopause is a problem and is in the way that women are broken. Or the FDA classifying it as a disease. It's not. It's like going through puberty. It should be celebrated. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's been miscommunicated and mismanaged.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Agreed.
Yeah, and because she was even just telling me, he mentioned driving on the 10, which she has done, the I-10 that we have here, a very busy freeway for about 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
But she's out of that now. She literally just is in a new job working now from the house, got a promotion, doesn't have to go to the office. So that is definitely going to help reduce some cortisol and some stress. But you can still
be on the freeway and drive and not be stressed and have high levels of cortisol. It's about how you manage it.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I talk with her about this all the time. She I mean, he knows. That ride, we just went out there twice in the past 2 weeks to go to her going away parties and whatnot.
Yeah.
Both times coming home, we're like, yeah, we wouldn't do this. I can't even do this ride one time a week. She's been doing it every week for 8 years. And I think
I would rather drive.
Very upset with it.
I would rather drive on a back road and hit every red light, and then drive the I-10 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
When I lived in San Diego and I had to go to Los Angeles, I used to deliberately wake up at like 3 a.m. I'd rather make it there in an hour comfortably, sit in Starbucks and sleep or do work than sit in traffic for 4 hours.
Oh, man. Yep. Yeah, that 405 though.
No, thanks.
No, not for me.
Yeah. Well, I love one thing you said there. I'd like to expand on it a little bit, especially with you brainiacs here. Like you talked about sleep, like ruining kind of that deep sleep. That leads to more than people realize. And you mentioned hormones.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that she has also been trying to dial in recently is hormones. And now that you said that, I'm like, well, it's all kind of making sense. If she's been waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning every night for who knows how long now, most of the year probably, of course her hormones are going to be out of whack and everything is kind of going to be messed up for her, out of whack.
Absolutely. No question.
Yeah, it's very
She's operating at a hormone deficit. So now she's going to a doctor and doctors are going to prescribe HRT or some other bioidentical hormone or something without realizing that there's a simpler solution.
Yeah.
It's a hammer.
Fix your sleep.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Like, let's talk a little bit more about cortisol. Because like you said, it does elevate from various different things, from working out is one. And I like that you said that because we obviously encourage people to exercise and lift weights and do all those things.
Absolutely.
But it's great to have that talking point about do it earlier in the day. a lot of people struggle with that because they're like, oh, I work or whatever. But okay, like we need to look at the bigger picture.
Mhm.
You know, like what else is going on in your life and where else is cortisol coming from? How good is your sleep? All these things have to come in to factor in. But where else is cortisol, you know, coming from? Like how else is it affecting us and what is causing it?
Wow, everything.
Mm-hmm.
You have no control over your cortisol. You might have some, but very little.
Yeah.
If the fire alarm goes off, that's going to affect your cortisol. If your wife calls you in a panic, it's going to set your alarm off. If you're waiting for a big invoice to be paid, it's going to set off your cortisol. You have no control. It's all external.
Yeah.
That it drills. Unless you're going to be a Buddhist monk and meditate all day, where you can control your environment,
right,
you're going to have calm cortisol. But right now, you have no control over it. Every molecule in your body has a cortisol receptor. It's the only hormone that has a receptor that affects you systemically. And so you can't control it. And so cortisol is doing this all day long. Okay.
Sure.
If I talk very softly, it's going to be calming you down. If I start screaming at you, okay, you're going to go back. It's going to start to spike.
Sure.
So you have absolutely no control of it. And if you acknowledge that and appreciate that, then you realize that the way that we live our lives today with technology, with the pressures and stresses of being a family man, having a business and everything else, that the pace in which the world has evolved to is now at a point where it's simply at an elevated cortisol level for everybody.
Yeah.
And that cortisol, unless it's controlled and supported, and there's plenty of ways you can meditate, you can work out. Is obviously it can bring, though it increases cortisol, it can actually calm you down from an anxiety perspective. There are so many things that you can do to support it. But at the end of the day, you need to acknowledge the fact that if cortisol is too high, I'm going to have a tough time going to sleep. And I'm going to have a tough time staying asleep. And we don't put enough emphasis on the fact that our sleep is sacred. And without that 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep, we're setting ourselves up for failure in terms of our optimum performance the following day.
Mm-hmm. You said something very important, and I think a lot of people don't realize everything contributes to cortisol increasing. Like everything. Everything from the bills, the phone ringing, the dog barking, like all those things. I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, okay, I hear that. So what are some of the things, let's talk about, to help manage and control and support that in a healthy way?
Well, it's very difficult. Not a lot of people are willing to compromise putting their phone down before going to bed.
Yeah.
I had to put that in. I know you appreciate that, right?
That's very good.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful and be aware of what's going on in your world.
Sure.
And be able to make a conscious decision. And I can go back to some real simple basics. Here's a Big Mac and here's a salad with protein on it. Right? Not everyone can make the right decision. Right? Everyone wants to make the right decision. Here's a beer and here's some hydrogenized water. Right? You know the right one, but today I'm going to take this.
Depends on what kind of beer it
is. Right? So those are the choices that we make in our world, right? Everyone knows that you should eat farm to table. You should eat healthy, organic, wherever possible. You should consume a lot of water every day. You should get 8 hours of sleep every night. It's not always viable.
Sure.
So there's a level of realism that has to go into the ideal day. But the more that you can structure your world around setting yourself up for success, the better. I just raised $1 million. Should I go buy $1 million building? No, exactly. Same thing. I want to lose 10 pounds. Should I take that candy bar? No. Right? No, it's the same thing. And so when it comes to cortisol, I think education around being mindful about our choices in our day, of being aware of the fact that I need to protect my sleep. If I protect my sleep, I'm going to set myself up for success tomorrow and the next day, and so forth.
Yep.
I like that a lot. One of the things that I like to do sometimes is challenge people to what I call perfect week of the basics.
Yep.
Exercise, nutrition, hydration, sun, and sleep, essentially. And then whatever supplements that they're on, like, don't miss a supplement, because it's very easy. Whatever, I'll take that later. I'm supposed to take magnesium tonight. I'm not going to take it. Or I can push my TRT shot a day or two. You know what I mean? I try to challenge them to the basics because most people do not master the basics. And what I'm hearing from you is if you do these things, all the other cortisol things that spike cortisol, like that is kind of the answer to get rid of some of it.
You can't change your world in regards to what happens during the day. There's going to be stresses, there's responsibilities that we have to do, but we can certainly set ourselves up for as much success as we can for sleep and regeneration. You brought up TRT. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
How do you know how much TRT you should be taking?
Yeah. Well, what's a good question?
Yeah.
If you wanna go for
I
it.
have a different answer than a lot of people would. I don't base it off of a blood work number. I base it off of symptoms, and only if there's an underlying issue that we can't correct with, by correcting the actual issue.
I would agree with
So,
you 100%.
yeah.
I think the problem that we have today is too many people think I need to have this number, which is I need to be above 700, I need to be 800. Justin's 800, I'm going to be 850.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's not a competition, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah.
that's what's happening in the world versus there isn't a test on the planet to tell you what your ratio of hormones should be.
Well, unless you knew exactly what, and it would be impossible to do this. If you had a perfect puberty, which doesn't happen anymore, and you knew exactly what all of your hormones, not just testosterone, but all of your hormones spiked to and leveled off to. And if you knew all those numbers and you had a trend.
And there was nothing stressful in your life.
And there was nothing stressful in your life. Right. Yeah. The only way you could ever do that is.
You can't. So what doctors do is they'll say, let's run a hormone panel. The good doctors, because not everyone does this. I'll run a complete hormone panel.
Mhm.
And this is where you are today. It's like a balance sheet. Snapshot in time. Boom. Here you go. This is where you are today. Guess what they'll ask next? How do you feel?
Mhm.
How are you sleeping? How's your weight? How's your muscle mass? How's your energy? How's your
Right.
libido?
Mhm.
Right? And then you'll answer that question. And based on your answers, the doctor will make some recommendations, which may or may not include a pharmaceutical intervention.
Mhm.
Right? My problem with the way it's been administered today is it's based on a competition and a standard that doctors say, well, everyone should be about 800. I know people at 1200 that are miserable. I know people that are 400 that are thriving. I wish I could be as cool as I am.
Yep.
Right? It's as unique as your thumbprint. And it is not based on just one number. It's based on the whole spectrum. You think of your endocrinology world, your entire system, your hormonal system as a pie, and each ingredient has a certain ratio to it.
Mhm.
Your recipe is unique to you and doesn't match anyone else on the planet. And there's
I like
no
that.
way a doctor can say that, well, this slice of the pie is too big and this slice of the pie is too small. It's all based on how you show up. And how you show up today may be completely different to how you showed up last year because there's different things going in your world. And so if stress is high, sleep is going to be low, your hormones are going to be low. So the current fix is, we'll give you a bioidentical hormones. We'll fix that right up.
Right.
But cortisol hasn't come down. So now when cortisol does come down, now a whole bunch of other issues start to arise because your hormones are way out of whack. And that's the problem I see with this as a solution versus let's actually take everything back and go, are we eating right? Are we drinking right? Are we sleeping right? Are we exercising right? And then everyone says, well, what's the perfect exercise? What's the perfect diet? Tell me, what do you eat?
Yeah.
Eat healthy, consume less calories than you burn, and just raise your heart rate, lift some weights,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't matter what it is because there's always a diet fad. There's always an exercise fad.
Totally.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
problem nowadays is nobody wants to hear that because it puts the responsibility back on them.
People are
It's
lazy
like,
and they want
it
quick
takes,
fixes.
just tell me the right exercise. It's like, just go exercise.
Just do something.
Get your heart rate above 150. Like whatever, like just do these things. That's why we harp on the basics so much. And I think anybody who's really successful in this space does just do that. It's like, let's look at the basics first. Generally when we have somebody who is, complaining about low energy, lethargy, whatever, that's the first thing we ask them about is their sleep. It's like, how are you sleeping? Oh, like crap. Cool. What time do you wake up in the morning?
No.
What time do you go to sleep at night? How much caffeine are you consuming today? Like all these things. And it's like, okay, if you fix all those things, then the ancillaries will also be fixed. And they're like, oh, well, I don't want to change any of that stuff.
It's funny.
Give me the pill.
It's funny. I had a conversation with a doctor 2 days ago who was, trying to credential all the way through the conversation about the PhDs and degrees that this person had. And I'm suffering with, she was saying I was suffering with perimenopause and symptoms. He goes, but, what about alcohol? I'm like, no. She says, well, what do you mean though? I said, well, alcohol is a stimulant. Everyone thinks it's a sedative. It's not.
No.
It might be a sedative initially, but a few hours later, guess what? It goes to sugar and it's hyper time.
Yeah.
But I want a glass of wine. I was hoping that your product would, in the studies, would prove that it was successful with alcohol. This is coming from a doctor.
She was hoping the study said
It's
something.
hoping that I had a magic pill
Yeah.
to support a vice that from a physiological standpoint doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Because everyone wants to drink at dinner or at night and then go to bed, but you can't.
No.
I said, have a mimosa at lunch. Do something at a
Yeah.
different time. Now, no one's perfect. Go out, celebrate, have a drink, but know that it might wake you up.
Mhm.
And you don't have a perfect night every day, right? It doesn't have
Right.
to be every day.
Right.
But understand that if I do have a drink at night, good chances are not only am I going to wake up, I'm also going to need the bathroom, which requires more cortisol.
Right.
That's why in Belgium they drink beer for breakfast.
Yeah. Sounds pretty good. Yeah. I totally agree. We talk about alcohol all the time. Like, I don't know if you saw my cup or not, but we have a coaching group called Earn Your Booze.
Right.
And essentially it's for people that do choose to imbibe. It's like, okay, well, here are the things that we would like you to do especially if you're going to do that.
Right.
And it's all the stuff we've already talked about. It's all the basics. And what you drink is important. You know, there's a big difference between drinking a plastic bottle of vodka with a ton of soda or a 30 pack of Bud Light. Big difference between that and a neat 100% blue agave mezcal on the rocks, you know, and what time you drink is a huge thing. Huge thing. I mean, now I don't drink very often now. And if I do, I have a drink at dinner or two.
It's fine.
It's fine, but it absolutely messes with my sleep then. Then I'm in the same boat as my wife. I'm just like awake. What am I doing? Like, you know, the next day I check out my sleep data. It's definitely down. Like it definitely affects me.
It's not meant to be judgmental in any way. The comment is not meant to, you know, be idealistic. We're all human and we all have vices and we all do some things and we are aware of the consequences that may, or the repercussions that may happen by taking that decision. If you're fine with it, you're fine with it.
Yeah.
The question really is around how do you optimize and how do you solve some of the problems that we're having?
Yeah.
And these little decisions all weigh into how I show up the next day due to my sleep.
There's a question I've been want to ask you. I don't know if you've done any research on THC in sleep. Have you gone into that? What that does? Because a lot of people that I've talked to, and kind of myself is in this boat, has basically kind of ditched alcohol because we found that like you can wait until your day is completely over, have a gummy or smoke some weed or something and get that kind of fun. Like my day is over. I forget about all the stuff, you know, and it actually, I feel like it does kind of help my sleep. And I've tracked a lot of my sleep data and it hasn't been messing with me, but I have heard a lot of people that it does degrade their sleep and has them extra groggy in the next day and all that. And I'm very curious if, you know, what's actually happening.
If I may highlight a few things that you've said.
Yes, please.
Okay. Everyone keeps going back to what's the standard, what's the solution, but you're unique as your own thumbprint. What may work for you might not work for me.
Agreed.
And I think that's what people need to kind of embrace is that you're a unique, wonderful individual and your body's requirements are going to be unique to you. And so if you find something that works, go for it. In terms of tracking your sleep, all I really suggest for people to track is their deep sleep. Because if you're getting 60 to 90 minutes of deep sleep, I think that's a fabulous thing, right? I don't care if I get a sleep score of 78 or I get a sleep score of 99. I just go directly to deep because that's where I know my body is regenerating for the following day.
I knew back in Texas, there was a guy, this was years and years and years ago before these, you know, before the sensory deprivation tanks kind of got popular. Before Joe Rogan started talking about them. This is years and years ago, probably over 10 years ago now. And he would only take, two 60-minute naps in his sensory deprivation pod. Two 90-minute naps in his sensory deprivation pod. And that's it. He would never sleep. And he was in his 70s, perfectly healthy, you know, and all that. He's like, I've been doing this for the last 15 years. I've only gotten 90 minutes of sleep, basically. Or 180 minutes of total sleep for the last like 15 years. And it was because when you're in the sensory deprivation tank in Epsom salts, he's like, I'm getting 90 to 120 minutes of REM sleep and deep sleep in those times. So I don't need any of the other, it's like just filler.
But also his age.
Yeah. He was in his 70s. Yeah.
Right. So if he was doing it for the last, was it 70? He'd been doing it since he was 55?
Yeah.
Okay. So don't forget, as you age, you make less and less hormones.
Yeah.
Right. And so how it shows up in your world is differently. So if you're a very active, virile 35-year-old man or woman, right, and you have much more expectations of your body's capabilities than you do when you're 55 and 65.
Sure. Absolutely.
Even though we've been aging younger, right?
Yeah.
65, 70-year-olds are doing crazy things today compared to what they were, primarily due to HRT.
That's a good point. So I have my sleep data up, and I just want to make sure. So I have deep, core, and REM. Which one are you referring to? Just to deep. Okay, so it looks like over the last month, I've been averaging 40 minutes.
Yep. So you're operating at a deficit.
Okay, and over the last 6 months, the average is 26 minutes.
So you're improving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just shorten the time that you're averaging.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good because I
change the
make
trend.
the data work for you.
Yeah, change the trend.
Hey, I'm a statistician. I can make anything look good. Because I was always looking at REM, like REM, and that my average is an hour and 40 there.
Well, REM is important, but in my world, what I'm looking at, trying to simplify this for the general public, it's about deep.
Okay.
You care about deep because that is when you're making your hormones, your testosterone, your estrogen, all those hormones that you are making. Yes, guys, make estrogen as well.
Yeah.
That is the critical component.
Okay.
Also, HGH, right? That recovery hormone, right? I mean, HGH has a really bad rap, but if I could be HGH's publicist, I'd call it the recovery hormone. And that's the reason why when we were in our early 20s, we were invincible. Could fall off a freaking building, bounce back up, you were fine, right? You're fine. As you get older, you make less and less and less. Why? Because HGH is how you evolve from being an infant into an adult. And once you become fully grown, you don't need any more. So you peter off. But that HGH still is at a high level in your 20s and into your 30s. And that's why we were invincibles. That's why we could party all night, get up and do it the next day.
Yeah.
But as we get older, we're making very little HGH. And now it's not so easy to get up and do the same things over and over again. And so your deep sleep, you have to protect because that's where you make the HGH that you need. And you need every little bit of it as we get older.
Okay. So we'll talk testosterone for sure. I'd like to ask a little bit more about HGH. What are some ways to kind of raise that? Because it's petering off. Just sleep.
Just straight sleep.
Okay.
Straight sleep.
So what do you think about any other peptides or pharma or anything that, not just HGH, because there's some peptides, that can help secrete more. And what do you think about all that kind of stuff?
Well, almost every single peptide has been reclassified as a biologic, so you can't use it with the FDA's blessing, with the exception of one, Sermorelin.
Okay.
I like Sermorelin as a peptide to support more HGH, but it comes with risks associated with it, as do everything. It's the only one that's been approved and clinically available to be prescribed. The reason I like the peptide is because early on in the studies at Serrano and Merck, they did studies on this, and it was brought to market, Sermorelin, to help short stature in children. And what they realized after a short period of time is that the children actually were more beneficial from taking the hormone itself. What happened over the past, 50 years, probably way exaggerated there, so 30 years, whatever, is doctors have been prescribing Sermorelin for adults, and it has taken off. Why? Because adults' bodies aren't prepared to take on HGH, because that was when we were younger, right? Our bodies need the HGH to grow, and so we can receive it.
Sure.
But as we get older, we aren't designed to receive the big boosts of HGH, so adults don't respond as well. And there's a lot of side effects from it. Sermorelin was 40% as effective or less effective. I forget the ratio, which way it was around. And so when adults take Sermorelin, they're much more receptive to it because it's a lower concentration and dosage. And so adults have responded very well. It's $1 billion industry, I think, right now.
Yeah.
And it's all off-label. But Sermorelin has been shown to be and touted as the holy grail of supplements for adults in combination with testosterone.
What do you think about hexarelin?
I'm not at liberty to say.
Okay. That's fair enough. No, that's cool. Let's take even a little bit different direction. Then we're going to bring it back
That's a good answer.
To what's on the table here. But I want to read a little bit of your bio here because it's pretty fascinating. You've gone through all sorts of schools and all sorts of different things, from 3D animated commercials, worked Disney, I believe, and Honda and all this. But I mean, you did something, some sort of courses at Harvard, Yale, MIT, Sloan School of Management. And I want to see, like, how did you grow up? How did you get into doing all of that school? And how did that kind of play into your first business? I'd like to kind of start to dissect who Justin High is and how you got into having a successful exit from a business and how we got to, where we're at today.
In high school, I took an aptitude test in London that said I would be a really good garbage man or landscape gardener. And the last option on there was I'd be a good officer in the military. And I saw these guys jumping out of helicopters on the TV. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Because I don't want to be a garbage man. That doesn't sound very good.
What kind of test was this, though? Like,
seriously.
Hey, my high school, the same test said you can either go to the military, you be a police officer, or you go to jail. That was.
So you had the same options as me, basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. We had the same options. Those 3 options. Yep.
So I went the military route, and then I had a commission at Sandhurst, which is the equivalent of West Point here. And it was either machine guns in Hong Kong with the Gurkhas or California and girls in bikinis. I went the California route, guys. I had turned down that.
I don't blame you.
I lasted about 6 months in California before my dad said, you got to go to the East Coast and keep your clothes on and do something more productive. And so I applied and eventually got into the Rhode Island School of Design, which is on the same campus as Brown. I studied industrial design and animation. And in my senior year, was applied and got into Harvard, Yale, and MIT for semester-long courses. And it was a blend of design and business. And I just fell in love with that combination, left brain, right brain, merging together. I thought it was really cool, and I got addicted to it. And my career evolved. How I got into kind of this was I was very lucky. I was kind of lost. I was in the wilderness with many companies that had failed. Out of failure comes learning.
Yes. And
I met my mentor, and he said, let's do something. And we started the skincare company, Elastin Skincare. We came up with the concepts, the ideation, the branding, and we built this company together with a huge team. It's not me. It's a team. And, I'm not this genius child. No, I am part of a team. I was very lucky. I got a very good mentor and helped guide me in the right ways. We built the company up. And towards the end of Elastin, we were contacted, or he was contacted by Nestle and said, hey, can you make a supplement for skincare? And then that research landed on my shoulders. I'm like, okay, I'll look into it. And after exploration, I said, I get it. I understand why they want to go that way, but I personally don't see the market evolving that way. People want skincare to be topical, not something you take orally. And even though Nutrafol's become very successful with hair and all that type of stuff, it wouldn't be something I think we would want to get into. And so we said, well, keep playing. And then I pivoted towards endocrinology, and I was really fascinated with hormones, as was he, because our first formulation of Elastin had HGH in it. Because we thought that, we knew in Europe, HGH was being used to help heal wounds very efficiently. But in America, doctors didn't like it, the FDA didn't like it. And so we pivoted to peptides. However, when I started looking at endocrinology, I was fascinated with cortisol, and I started going down that path and ended up with Rebalance Health.
Okay. And so what was the business before that you guys were able to exit?
Elastin Skincare.
That was that one.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty neat.
We have a lot of very, very smart people, far smarter than us, which was the secret sauce.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
When you come up with an idea, then hire people far smarter than you to take it all the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like about being in this room right now. I'm not the smartest guy in here. This is great.
So you guys ended up saying no to Nestle.
We said no to Nestle.
That's a power move in itself, because nobody says no to Nestle.
My partner, my partner in all fairness has bought and sold companies too.
Sure.
So I had a very good relationship, and they presented the idea, and we were like, not quite sure that's going to work.
So who ended up buying it?
Who ended up buying Elastin?
Yeah.
Galderma.
Okay. Another big brand.
One of the largest in the aesthetic space, yes.
Yeah.
Out of Europe.
Man, that's
Very
so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I imagine there's a lot of lessons learned, like you said, from that whole experience, doing the research and the branding and the whole business. And How long after you sold that did you decide, okay, I want to get into another product?
We're always thinking. We always
Even
have.
now, right?
We already know the next company. Yeah.
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 That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Cool.
Our brains are always thinking, and we see opportunities. We only develop products, or he's taught me that we only develop products when there's a real need,
Okay.
not just a money grab.
Sure.
It's like, where is the need? How can we actually help the population with something that is needed, that solves a real problem?
Yeah, for sure.
Not just because it's quick and easy.
No. I mean, that's the right way to approach it. Like,
Yeah.
You know, any good business or product should be solving some sort of problem,
Right.
even if it's entertainment, but like some sort of problem. If you can fill it, then yeah, that's a huge thing. So now
Absolutely.
we have Rebalance.
Yes.
So I'd love to talk about it. You gave me a lozenge right before this. And I was like, I don't even care what it is. Let me have it. I want to try it. I feel great right now.
I don't know whose these are, but I
maybe I'll
keep
take
eating
another
them.
one. I'd love to learn about this because it says balance hormones naturally. You know, we started this conversation off talking a lot about hormones and TRT and HGH and peptides and all this kind of stuff. So where does this fit in when it comes to hormones and sleep and all the things we've talked about so far?
Well, this supports cortisol.
Okay.
Basically a solution for the morning, the afternoon, and bedtime.
Okay. Which one should I take right now?
I would take the afternoon.
Okay. Thank you. It's kind of like having a drink with your buddies.
So
You want one?
No.
Okay. He's driving.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
driving.
I quit. Yeah.
So it's pretty straightforward. In researching cortisol and its impact on the body, I realized that we needed to support cortisol throughout the day.
Yeah.
And the problem with most supplements is that they haven't taken in consideration metabolism. And your body utilizes whatever you put inside of it every 4 to 6 hours. So when cortisol is a 24/7 hormone, you're only getting support for 4 to 6 hours.
It's only a little dent you're putting in it if you're even affecting it.
Mhm.
Okay.
And most people are taking their supplements in the morning, and that's not necessarily the best time to crush your cortisol in the morning. That's kind of when you want it the highest. So
Well, the idea behind the brand is that I wanted to support cortisol through a 24-hour period, or as close to as I could, knowing that I'm trying to get people to sleep for 7 to 8 hours. I can't, and I don't want to interrupt them in order to take another supplement.
sure.
Yeah.
And so the idea here is that with the invention of technology, the pace of technology, the way content is being served up to us all the time, our cortisol is in an elevated state. So if I can support bringing cortisol back into the normal parameters, that would be ideal. And so suggestion is to take a lozenge in the morning, a lozenge in the afternoon, and a lozenge at bedtime, but they're formulated differently because you have different needs throughout the day.
Sure.
And so the idea here is if I can get cortisol into the normal parameter that you should be operating within, meaning rest and digest versus fight and flight, then I can get your body to function the way it should. If your body's in fight and flight all the time because of elevated cortisols, you're not going to lose weight, you're going to gain weight.
Yeah.
Because fight or flight is your body's alarm system. It's its defense system. It's you're running from a saber-toothed tiger type of situation. And so your body doesn't know when it's going to eat next. So it holds on to all its stored fats and foods and everything to try and preserve it. You don't need libido. You don't need all these things that we need to function as human beings. Sure, in a short period of time, that's great. But we've evolved in such a pace with technology and the way that we interact with it that we're in this elevated state all the time.
Yeah.
So why can't I lose those extra 10 pounds? Because you're in elevated state of cortisol.
Yeah.
And so I want to control cortisol and support it with natural ingredients through a lozenge delivery system multiple times a day, taking metabolism into consideration so that you can fall asleep quickly and stay asleep. But it's not a magic pill. You still need to have good sleep hygiene. You still need to exercise. You still need to do all these other things.
Yep.
It's just a tool to help offset the craziness that technology has brought to our world.
It makes a lot of sense, especially when you think about the beginning of this conversation, how everything is triggering cortisol spikes. Why not manage it a little bit all the time throughout the day? And that makes a lot of sense. So when someone's using this, like I'm going to run through a whole cycle because you gave me some. Do you still do everything else normal? Like, would you still keep a normal coffee routine if you have a coffee routine? And in hormone routine if you're on TRT and stuff like that? Or
So our chief medical officer runs an age management wellness clinic. He used to run all the ER facilities in Boulder County. And he basically says this product has enabled him to actually either take people off of HRT or not even start them on it, or lower their dosage.
Sure. Okay. And do you think a lot of that is coming from, are we getting back to like, this is helping essentially with that deep sleep and helping the natural hormones?
It's real simple. If cortisol is high, you can't fall asleep, you can't stay asleep.
Cool.
If cortisol is low, you can fall asleep quickly and hopefully stay asleep, providing all other things are treated equally.
So you can kind of look at it as like a sleep aid that you're kind of taking throughout the day to get ready for the end of the day type thing.
Yeah, you're setting yourself up for success. Interesting thing about sleep aids is they don't work. And they're documented not to work, right? Because do you know why they don't work?
No.
Because they don't put you into a natural circadian rhythm of light, deep, and REM sleep. You skip all of it. It just knocks you out. So that's when people wake up from having sleep aids, they go, I slept for 12 hours, but I feel like shit.
I need a pot of coffee.
Yeah. And sleep aids don't work.
Wow.
You have to fall into that natural circadian rhythm in order to get the benefits of sleep.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I totally get it now. And like I said, I'm going to run through it. I'm going to have my wife do it too. Especially her, because
I have my kids on the anxiety one.
Oh, really?
The pressures that the kids have today, because they're also on social media, right? What did they say? The average kid, I actually gave it to my son. I said the average kid spends 6 hours a day on social media.
Yeah, it's 8 hours of screen time.
8 hours of screen is 6 hours of that, right? So if you do it this way, right? Do the math with me.
It's insane.
Right? Over 4 years, do you know how much 6 hours is?
Oh, God.
It's 1 year.
Yeah.
Right? It's 1 year. So my son went to college this year. I said, do you think it's a good idea to get 75% of the value of college? Or do you think it's better to get 100% idea of college?
Right. Exactly. I'd like to ask you about, you mentioned the technology. We mentioned it a couple different ways. One, technology is absolutely wrecking us for sure. Like when it comes, especially with screens and blue light and all these things and Wi-Fi and cell signals and all these different things. But how about the technology of this to get these supplements actually into the body? Because I love what you say. What did you say? Like Americans have the most expensive pee in the world?
Yeah, Americans have the most expensive pee on the planet.
On the planet, yeah.
Take that, Russia, right?
Yeah. We got a hot spot, right? Yeah. But it makes sense. Like, because you pee in, like we used to, talk all the time. Like if anyone ever went to GNC or had Animal Pack back in the day or anything, we used to judge our vitamins by how deep yellow or orange our pee was. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, there goes your whole freaking stack, so it makes sense to me that, that we're peeing a lot of it out. So I'm big on just like bioavailability and absorption, So talking about what's in this, I've noticed there's a lot of different things in it. A lot of it's a little bit lower dose, but we're taking it throughout the day. And tell me, how is the technology helping get it in?
How do you know what dosage you should take? I'm curious. You said low dose.
I had a feeling you would say that.
Yeah.
We were actually talking about that on the way over here because, there's these different standards of you should be taking this much magnesium.
But how do they know that?
Exactly. This is what I want to talk with you about.
Because you can't trace it in the body, right? I mean,
right.
There's not a single study on the planet that tells you how much ashwagandha you should take because you can't trace ashwagandha.
So, okay. Well, along those lines, then, how did we arrive at what you guys put in here? I just love what you've been able to put together, and I wanted to hear
We had this
background.
massive dartboard on the wall.
Okay.
No way. Okay. I want to take one step back. You talked about technology. Technology is awesome. And I don't want this to be a bashing competition on technology.
Agreed.
Technology is fabulous. It gives us what we are asking for, what we're driving for. The problem is there was no instruction manual to tell us how to use it responsibly.
Right.
And I think basically what it is we all need to go to, Technology Anonymous because we're all addicted to it.
Yeah.
All of us.
I would
including
go,
me.
for
We're
sure.
all addicted to it.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to turn it off responsibly for our own benefit. And I think, so that's it. So I think technology is awesome, but we just got to learn to modulate it a little bit better.
Sure.
In regards to our technology and ingredients, well, Yeah, a lot of supplements, and it's well documented. There's studies, NIH, Harvard, that prove that supplements don't get absorbed by the body.
Yeah.
In fact, I mentioned this earlier today. A doctor informed us a few weeks ago that she read a study that said the number one item found in porta potties was whole supplements.
Really?
Uh-huh.
We can imagine how they got in there. Yeah.
They didn't get digested because
Right.
in trying to combat the acids in the stomach, we put coatings and casings around them to make them survive.
Right.
But then they're too good. And because everyone is different, some people have stronger acids than others. And so, yeah, it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
We basically emulated zinc lozenges. During COVID, the FDA, the government recommended that we take zinc lozenges.
Right.
They didn't say take a zinc tablet, and they didn't say take a zinc gummy, which is probably full of sugar, right?
Yeah.
Right? They said take a zinc lozenge
Okay.
and suck on it because of the homeopathic pathways, sublingual pathways that have been proven to be beneficial. And so when you look at delivery, the best delivery method is subcutaneous injection or an IV directly in the veins. Next is a nasal spray or a sublingual delivery. And so that's where we opted to go in that direction. The three is because of the metabolism issue that we think we are supporting where most don't. And the last but not least is the formulation. That's where you get people far smarter than myself and other individuals. We got a big medical group together, about 12 doctors, ranging from OBGYNs, endocrinologists, general practitioners. We've got Chinese doctors, Ayurvedic doctors, and we put a list of natural ingredients that have been proven for centuries to support hormonal health. And we basically put them into categories. And then we basically had a delivery size of what we thought we could be a good size lozenge. And then we broke it up into ratios as to what would work. In terms of the dosage, studies. Simple as that, studies.
Yeah.
And trying to figure it out. But I can tell you this, peptides don't survive in the gut. They are extremely fragile. And so you cannot consume a peptide that way and expect it to survive. So
yeah, the only one that's actually beneficial to take orally would be BPC 157, but only because it's for your gut.
It's for your gut. Yeah. And so there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of people vilifying things and stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, just show the data, show the studies, show that it works. That's all that is necessary. But supplement companies don't, because there's relatively no money in supplements, right?
Right.
You know, and they're private labeled and so forth. But I always think it's funny when I go into Whole Foods and I look at the supplement aisle. I'm like, where do I start?
Yeah.
How do I know what St. John's wort is for unless I'm a herbalist or I'm an expert or someone's told me what the hell is horny goat weed and do I want it or cat's claw? And so you look at these aisles and you're like, how and why? And so when we developed this product, we were focused on cortisol. What came out of our studies, we were not prepared for, but we were thrilled about. We had men coming going, I'm sleeping better. My testosterone numbers have increased from my doctor. He's asking what I'm doing. My cortisol levels had never been so low. I can't believe it. And then we had women coming who were saying the same thing, but what took us by surprise was women saying, my hot flashes are gone. I thought I was in menopause. My period came back. My brain fog is gone. My mood is improved. And we really took to that quite seriously. And we ended up doing a formal IRB clinical study. We've done one which open label, and now we're in the middle of a double-blind placebo, showing that we can actually support women going through perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause with their symptoms. Why? They're not sleeping. They're not making their hormones in their sleep. And we've had women that say they're gone. Women saying they were unbelievably unbearable, and I'm at 90% of them are eliminated. I still have a few, but they're so much better. I'm sleeping. My family likes me again. I'm back to being me. I'm calm. I'm not moody.
Yeah.
And then my favorite comment is, my kids remind me to take Mommy's magic lozenges because the kids are noticing the difference,
Oh, that's
right?
great. Yeah.
And so what we ended up with is the underlying cause for these issues is cortisol. But I can't market it as a cortisol product because the consumer doesn't understand it.
Right.
Cortisol has become a buzzword in the past 9 months, right?
Yeah.
But no one understands it.
Right.
They still think it's fight or flight. right?
Yeah.
And so people aren't going, I have low testosterone, where's your cortisol product?
Mhm.
I have hot flashes, where's your cortisol product? And so we named our products after the symptoms in order to help educate people. But the underlying root that we're solving is high cortisol that's preventing you from sleeping and then helping you sleep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's great because a lot of there's probably, there's a lot of products out there that could be very beneficial if people knew how and when to take it and why.
And why?
So I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great. It's so much fun. She's gonna kick my butt for this, but all the things that you just said there, I don't think I'm going to take it. I'm going to give it to my wife, and see how she does it. No, I'm just kidding. We're both going to try it.
No, honestly, it is. And look, guys go through menopause as well. It's called andropause, right? And it is not spoken about a lot because guys are afraid that they're going to get beaten up by women for saying that's another thing you've taken from us, right? It's just
right.
Not the case, right? Men go through it between mid-30s and 70s, right? So they're going through it for basically 40 years. Women go through it 7 to 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a sensitive nervous system. Women have a very sensitive nervous system. Be honest with me, Justin, right? You had no idea your hormones were off until something hit you hard, right?
Oh, yeah.
For most guys, it's I'm gaining weight, I'm losing muscle mass, or I can't get an erection, right? And then the world is over. I'm going to the doctor, I'm getting this fixed, something's not right.
Yeah.
Now, women have been going through that since puberty. They know when something is off like that. I'm going to get my cycle. Something's off. So they're so highly attuned to their hormones where men are not. And so when women go through menopause, it is serious. It is earth-shattering in contrast to what men go through. It's a fraction of it. But men get hot flashes. You ever thrown the covers off at night?
Yeah.
Having a hot flash, brother.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Damn it.
That is a great point. They have their whole life essentially of practicing and knowing.
Right, is that funny?
Yeah.
They're cracking up over there.
Well, it's a great point because us guys, like most of the time, we feel like we have to like just kind of be macho or say like whatever, I'm hot or I'm having a hard time, I'm fine, whatever. But ladies are so much more in tune with their body because they've been going through that cycle forever.
So
they understand it.
They're aware of it. And trust me, your wife's going to tell you that you're moody.
Oh, she does.
Oh, yeah. So men have mood swings as well.
Yeah,
and they get worse as you get older because you're going through andropause. But it's just not as blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
There's a reason why dad bods come into play in their 30s, right? There's a reason for it, right? Other than the stresses of work and family and all that stuff. But your hormone production is significantly dropped off.
Yeah.
And so men have ordered our hot flash product. Women have ordered our testosterone. It is gender agnostic. It is based on your symptoms and what you need. There's plenty of women that don't suffer through menopause, but say, I know I need more testosterone. Right. I need more strength. I want to offset osteoporosis, which the only way you can do that is by actually putting the bones under stress to make them stronger.
Right.
And so they want to lift heavy weights. And so there's a rationale for it all, but it really all comes down to one very simple issue. You're not sleeping.
And I like how it's an answer to, or a counter, if you will, to pharmaceutical type stuff. Because we talked about TRT earlier. We know the TRT starter pack that everybody gets. It's test and an anastrozole and like have a good day. We had a guest on yesterday, Allie Gilbert. And I loved the first time I heard her speak. She was like, why is anyone ever prescribing an anastrozole? And when she started to go through all the reasons why, I got on testosterone probably like 6 years ago. I'll tell you my little backstory. I just started my first business, and it was called Earn Your Booze. And I was just going out all the time, setting up my apparel booth, making my own events, sponsoring other events, just running myself kind of ragged, as an entrepreneur, just going out and doing it. So I figured I was just kind of run down just because I had started a business. Well, I did a free prostate blood check at a bodybuilding show, and it came back with my test score, and it was basically gone. And so I started then. But I got on just a super standard thing, test and an anastrozole. And I went through this whole roller coaster forever until finally a couple of years ago, went to a different doctor, and they're like, cut your anastrozole in half. So I did that, felt a little better. And then it was, don't take it anymore. I've been off of it now for years. I feel so much better with just a low dose of test but everyone is set up with the same old starter pack. And I love when there's stuff like this because I'm not blowing smoke. I'm going to do this, and I want to see how it affects everything we've talked about, my sleep, my hormones, and everything.
Well, there are baby steps, and I think it's look, HRT is fabulous. There's a real need for it. There is a real medical need for it. Sure. I think doctors have gotten a little lazy, and it's an easy, quick fix for a patient that wants a solution quickly.
Totally.
Okay?
Totally.
So first thing I would do is like check your sleep, check your levels, make sure everything's good. The next thing I would say is there a signal disconnect between the brain and the testes?
Right.
Right? So is there a signal? Because as you get older, the signal gets weaker and weaker and weaker. So the first thing that our doctor would recommend would be luteinizing hormone. Let's see if we can amplify the signal, right? You don't need testosterone. The downside of taking testosterone is the studies show that after 12 months, you stand an 80% chance of never making testosterone again.
Sure.
That's the downside. You'll always be on the hormone for the rest of your life.
Right.
Okay? You can't, even when you come off it, it doesn't pony up. Well, at least 80% of the time it doesn't.
Right.
And so before you put someone on this, you should exhaust all other options.
Totally.
That's the issue I have. And I equate the HRT craze to the Botox craze in the 90s.
Yeah.
Because doctors aren't getting reimbursed the way they used to. Medical system is broken. Doctors need to make a living, and they get pitched for aesthetics and hormones, which are a cash business, to augment their income.
Oh, Zempic. Sorry.
But I mean, that's the problem. I don't blame doctors for doing it, but I don't think that the patients are as well educated. Half the people that hear that once you start on hormones, that after a year, 12 months, you basically are on it for the rest of your life are shocked. No one told me that.
Yeah. No, it's a very good point. And that's, we do fitness and nutrition, and we always start with the basics. Even if someone's 40 and they're like, man, I don't know, should I get on testosterone? It's like, well, I don't know, maybe, but let's work on the other stuff first.
It's a quick fix. We want quick fixes.
Yeah. And because you're right, because now that I'm on it, like that's kind of a realization I've been having recently. I've been on, I think, for five or 6 years or so. I'm not really looking forward to just stabbing myself 2 times a week for the rest of my life. That kind of sucks, and if that's what happens, that's what happens. But I'm always kind of like, okay, what could be some other ways? Could I potentially microdose with smaller needles? Could I try these other things? Could something else help replace it? It's someday maybe I won't care, and maybe I can drop it down to 500 and just be happy there. Like, because you're right. I don't necessarily want to just stabbing myself with a needle is one thing, but also I don't really just want to keep injecting pharma into my body forever. I really believe in more natural things. Like we preach food quality, like till we're blue in the face,
It's getting more and more difficult, isn't it?
It's getting more and more difficult. It really is. And I think one of the easiest ways to get more natural things in your body is to stop injecting pharmaceutical shit into your body. So I'm always kind of looking for that edge to see what I can do and if and when I'm going to try to, wean off or, bring it back down. And this will be my next test for sure.
You got to put the phone down first.
Yeah. What if I get orange glasses?
Orange glasses is going to help, but you still got to stop the stimulation.
Information.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yep. I agree. All right. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about has nothing to do with science and all this kind of stuff. Well, maybe a little bit. Tell me about what you do with race cars.
You got to play.
Yeah.
You got to have fun and play.
Yeah.
I bought a toy, and I promised myself that I wouldn't be one of those people that got into the toy and then crash it 5 minutes later because you didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
So I'm always one of those people that want to be good at everything that I do.
Yeah.
And so I took a whole bunch of courses and have fun, play with cars around the track, join the Porsche Club, and on track to be an instructor this year and teach other people how to do it safely.
And haven't crashed it yet?
No,
no. This is wood. Yeah,
what kind of Porsche did you get?
I started off with a 911 GTS and then became an idiot and bought a 992 GT3.
Sick.
That's awesome.
It's from what I know a handful of guys that have, GT3, GTS and all that stuff. They're like, and they all say the same thing. It is like the last true, like, automobile. It's like the last true, where you feel the road, you feel the and that's I've heard that about Porsche so much.
Well, you're either petrol headed or not. My kids were an anomaly. I bought them a really old Jeep with no power steering, this funny thing called a stick shift and a clutch. And I think my kid said there was one or two other kids in his grade that knew how to drive stick.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, no, I had no power steering. You have to learn power steering.
Yeah.
My theory was no texting, no phone, no distractions, no girl, none of that. You got to really move that wheel. You got to use that stick shift so it would be safe for the kids. But yeah, no, I think that I'm not a fan of electrical cars. I'm not. I think the soul of the car is in the sound.
Yeah.
And I want to control the car myself. So the less electronics, the better. And so, yeah, one of the GT3's beautiful thing is that 9,000 RPM naturally aspirated engine.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
Oh, yeah.
That's so cool. Oh, I totally agree. Like, it's crazy how fast electric cars have gotten. However, I want the engine, the sound. Like, I love starting. I have an AMG, and I just love when it starts. And then I just love how it hums. And I know right where, if the weather's good, right where I like the windows and everything, just to get the right sound. Like, I just love.
You gotta love the sound. I must admit, I was a little taken back here in Phoenix. There was this weird car with this like Amazon camera thing on the top of it called something.
Waymo.
Yeah. Waymo.
Yep. And there's nobody driving it.
There's no one driving it. And they're picking up passengers. I mean, I don't know if I would have.
We're living in the future here.
I don't think I had the constitution to sit in the back and just have this computer drive me around town.
I haven't done it yet, but they're all over. There's a couple different companies. Like there's a bunch of Jaguars, the little SUV kind of crossovers that drive around. There's Waymo cars. There's all sorts of different companies. Probably at least 3 or 4 here.
Never seen them before.
There's a ton. And my little daughter, she's 6. She's like, "Look, Dad, there's one of those cars with no one driving." Like she's always looking for them.
Yep,
they're all over the place. It's wild.
Yeah, my brother used to work for a self-driving car company, and he said that all you have to do to really confuse it is jump out of your car and put a cone in front of it and behind it, and it can't go anywhere.
Well, I was talking to the Uber driver on the way over here, and I said, out of curiosity, how many times do you reset your phone or restart your computer? It's a computer.
What about this thing?
Yeah, what about this thing?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Did you see, I think it was in San Fran, they have one of those hubs where all those cars park at night. And they were having problems because there was like 50 or 60 of them in this parking lot. And they were having problems like parking with each other. And one of the presets is to honk the horn. But not to like honk at like a person. And so this guy's looking over his balcony from his condo.
And they're all honking.
And they're all just kind of gridlocked and barely moving and honking. It's like, what is going on down here? Dude, I love it. I think it's so funny. And we talk crap all the time about electric cars. However, I do love how we're getting to like witness the start of whatever the next thing is going to be, because someday they're going to be cool, probably, maybe after us,
maybe after us.
But I think it's kind of neat just to see the transition going from, because a couple of years ago I sold it. Now I had a 1970 C10, like you were just talking about. I added the power steering and brakes and everything, but didn't have it before that. And then now we go up and we get cool cars like Porsches and all the new things, and it's fun. And now the electric cars that are driving themselves, like it's kind of neat to see in a relatively short span going from a carburetor up to no one driving fully electric. It's kind of neat, but I don't want to play with those, but I like stepping back and watching the technology.
They had to get rid of the carburetor because we figured out how to hack it. So.
Yeah, totally.
No, the reason I love driving so much or tracking or having some fun on the track is because it completely takes you away from everything else. You need 100% focus and concentration.
I think that's why I'm not a big fan of like being driven around. I like to personally drive because it lets me get away from whatever. Like I get to, play around if I want, put it in Sport Plus and just, just do my thing. And I get, 10, 30 minutes, whatever it is, to kind of just be in control and have fun in a different way. I like it for sure.
Yeah.
Although we do talk sometimes about if I did get to drive around, how much more productive I could be. But
that's faster, more content, more information. That's part of the problem. I think we all need to slow down as a society and just pause, breathe, stop. It's not all about being as efficient as you can every second of the day because you're missing out on being human.
Right. That's the conclusion I reached too, is like, well, that sounds neat from a productivity standpoint, but also my brain kind of hurts and I want to just drive my car, you know?
Yeah, I'd like to quote a guest that we just recently had. He said, we're human beings, we're not human doings.
Yes.
Yeah, good point.
You need to be, not do. Yep.
That's right. Well, Justin, hi. Thank you so much for coming out here and joining us. Best of luck with Rebalance. I'll let you know how it goes here in the next couple of weeks. And I can't thank you enough for being on and sharing your stories with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. Cheers.
Take care.